So, so tell me more. I mean, so if we keep on spraying these pesticides, not we as in you and I, but if
Yeah.
people, right,
Mhm.
keep on spraying these pesticides and we don't have bees, what's the game plan?
No bees, no food. But I think the game plan, as far as the corporations are concerned, is they figure they can always make synthetic food for us. And I think that that's actually a big part of what we're experiencing right now. I used to wonder, like, gosh, don't the people who work at corporations know that they're destroying the food system and that if they kill all the bees, we won't have nutritious food to eat? And as it turns out, all of the records from any regulatory investigation or lawsuit shows that the corporations always know the health harms of their products before their products enter the market. We think we live in a totally free market where things just happen by chance, but I think we live in a very controlled market. I think that corporations do a lot of pre-planning before they put a product out on the market. And it's very clear that Bayer knew that bees would be killed from their neonicotinoid insecticides. They knew that in 1991 before the products were approved in most countries. And and they went forward anyway. Why did they do this? Is it like, are they blinded by profit? Or are we seeing a controlled demolition, as Christian Westbrook of Ice Age Farmer likes to say, a controlled demolition of our food supply? And I've started to, I've been doing this long enough that I don't have so many illusions anymore. And I believe that our corporate the corporations are working on a transition away from natural food. And this is a long time coming. When our grandparents were kids, milk was delivered by the milkman. The milk it was very, very local. Even when I started working as an advocate and lobbyist for organic food back in 2005, um, one of the things that was very clear in Congress when we looked at the Farm Bill is most food is still very local, and milk was one of those things. It's just a good example of how local our food supply was even, a decade or so ago, 15 years ago. We had a localized food supply. Milk was always produced within 250 miles, and there were, hundreds of thousands of processors around the country servicing these local markets and small milk companies. And then, just like happened a long time ago, they invented pasteurization and homogenization to put out of business the ultra local milk producers who were bringing raw milk, unprocessed milk, to their customers each day. In our grandparents' lifetimes, that became to be phased out. But it's even just in our lifetimes and recent decades that the local food supply, the local processed food supply was phased out. So we've seen this, like, we're moving to a hyper globalized food supply. But I think the end game for the corporations that are in control right now, corporations like Monsanto, which merged with Bayer in 2018, the end game for them, they're chemical and genetic engineering companies. The end game for them is to replace natural food with 100% synthetic food. And we're beginning to see that with products like the Impossible Burger. The Impossible
Oh,
Burger, it's meant to be this really cool replacement for meat, and we hate our factory farmed meat system, so we want to replace it with something cleaner, better, safer. And so they use that excuse to begin to synthesize a real food, meat. And and they it's it's got ingredients in it that are 100% synthetic. They're made from bacteria, microorganisms that are genetically engineered, and they spit out a synthetic substance. Now, this is the manufacturing of the future. Small molecule production using bacteria as what the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency calls living foundries. That's their new word, living foundries.
What's
And
a
that
living foundry
means
then?
cells producing proteins, and perhaps, maybe they'll get more advanced and they'll produce, they call it small molecules. Maybe they'll get more advanced and they'll produce things that aren't proteins, things that aren't biological or synthesized biology. They'll be able, like when I told my son about this, he's 10, and I was talking with my husband and son, we're on a road trip, stuck in the car together. They end up, when I'm the driver, I get to decide what we listen to. So we ended up hearing a lot about GMOs. And my son said, "Oh, they want to make gold." And I think that that's probably true. If they could figure out a way to get genetically engineered bacteria to produce things beyond proteins, they're looking at the low-hanging fruit right now. They're like, yes, the food supply is definitely something that we can use this new manufacturing process for. The medical world is someplace we can use this new manufacturing process for. And then the next step is to go beyond that. So fuels are a bridge, right? So they can create bio-based synthetic fuels belched out by algae or bacteria. And then, okay, so Chris says the better question is, don't they care? Ultimately, they're hurting themselves too. These people are what you call transhumanists. They believe that by the end of their lifetimes, the people who are living now, they believe that their consciousness, or what they consider consciousness, Jody, I don't think you would agree that they understand what consciousness is. If they
No.
don't understand that a bee vibrates at the frequency of what we can only really call God, it's like they don't get consciousness. They don't have consciousness. They've suppressed it. They've blocked it out. Maybe they're tortured souls in some way, or maybe it's just, being beaten out of all of us in this corporate controlled world. But they don't understand consciousness, and they don't believe in it. And so they don't realize that they're hurting themselves because they have a concept of themselves that is apart from the natural world. They believe in, like, the singularity, when machines and humans will interface and there will be no distinction. We are leaving the natural world, we are entering the machine world, and we will take our personalities and our consciousness, whatever that means to these corporate people like Elon Musk, for instance. They think that they can take consciousness with us into a machine world because they don't understand what consciousness is.